Hello, and welcome to the virtual Nordic and Baltic Oscar Contender series presented by Scandinavia House in New York and the Scandinavian Film Festival of Los Angeles with the Baltic Film Expo at SFFLA. Today, we're talking with the Latvian Norwegian director Ilze Burkovska-Jacobsen, the director of the animated film My Favorite War, screening virtually this weekend. My Favorite War is submitted to the Academy Award Animated Feature Film category, and it is a winner of Amnesty's Contra Champ competition, and it's also submitted to the Annie Awards organized by the International Animated Film Society, ASIFA's Hollywood. Other prizes included the French Critics Award at Amnesty, the Special Distinction Award at Busan International Film Festival in Korea, the Grand Prize at the New Chitwas Airport Animation Festival in Japan, and the Best Animation Director and Best Animated Film in Latvia. Speaking with Ilse today is Hsiang. She is an artist and educator with an experience in higher education, production, technology, and management. She is now the inaugural BFA Animation Chair at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. She is also an active member of the global animation community and organizes and moderates an annual talent panel at Amnesty International Animation Film Festival, where she works with the animation executives, recruiters, artists, and educators to foster talents from all over the world. So please welcome Ilse and Hsiang.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Ilze, for sharing your amazing creation with us. So I guess, well, maybe we'll start by asking if you can just help us just recap a little bit about what this film is about, and especially how you came up with the title that posed such a contradictory, concept of My Favorite War.
Yes, hello, and thank you for allowing me to be with you. My Favorite War is a film about growing up in the Cold War Soviet Union, in a country which actually is occupied by Soviet Union, but the word occupation was not allowed to pronounce even. There were words which were not allowed to say loud. It was occupation, independence, and freedom, free Latvia. It's like Voldemort in Harry Potter. You will be punished if you say them out loud. So the film is about this process in your mind when you kind of discover that you are living in the room, which is dark, and you go to the curtains by the window, you open them, and that process, what you see when you are kind of opening your mind to the new views and letting the light in, how do you act, how do you handle the new impressions. So it's about your own inner liberation process, what happened to me during that decade from the 80s up till 1990. And the title, My Favorite War, yes. I am by nature quite provocative. I knew that it will drag attention because contradiction of those two words, favorite and war. Of course, it's to show the travel of the character in the film, where she loves to play war games, and in the end, where she is becoming a person who is a pacifist. So to get attention to that process from being just a naive kid to the active attitude, anti-war in your mind. But I have to say also, of course, life is struggle. So my favorite word for every person always is, you know, we are putting children in this world and they have to go out in this war, which is life. So you can see many levels of the title.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And I'm actually myself, I've done documentaries before. I've also incorporated a little bit of animation. So this film is really close to my heart. And I love, of course, like you said, that title just draws everyone's attention right away, and trying to figure out like, wait, which side should I be on, or which side this film is going to be on. So, and then when I was watching it, definitely that title itself has so much ups and downs and stories, which is kind of the structure of the entire film, is from the the child's perspective into seeing, wait a minute, that might not be exactly what the reality is and how to cope with it and moving forward. So I really appreciate that aspect. So I do want to actually ask another question as well. This is your story, right? So when you were making the film, how did you define, you know, the most important moments of the story that you want to tell?
Thank you. I decided to go, you know, just the political line of your growing up, because of course you can make a kind of feministic perspective what happens to your body and what happens like from the perception of other people to you. But in my case, in our family, the thing was kind of those discussions about politics and how my grandfather was listening to this Voice of America forbidden radio. There was always very active presence of the political questions in our family life. So I decided to follow that line in this story plot. And those it was a very long road to make script, because there are a lot of stories I had to take out. And of course, this balance between the personal and the society issues, which run parallels to you, it was a tough one. The things I knew, of course, which are important, is what happened in school, like when we were accepted in those pioneers in that organization, the Children Communist Organization. I knew from the beginning that has to be in the film. And those related things to the war, like the meeting of war veterans. And then it was a very important, like, break point in my mother's life when she was accepted in, or she had to apply for this membership in the Communist Party. Those were those things I knew all the time that they would be in the film.
Thank you. Speaking of those moments, I actually picked up a few moments that I relate to in the film. So I'm hoping you don't mind me asking a few questions about them. And the range is pretty wide though. So the first one is the strawberry scented soap. It's so symbolic. It's not just about memory. It's how, you know, us as human beings associate memory with our senses. So this question, not really about the film itself, but just want to know from you as a storyteller, do you have anything like that? Anything physical that reminds you of something, either good or bad?
I will tell you shortly about very fun thing, and it's also about this girl's perspective. You know, Ilze in the film, she all the time has her hair up in the ribbon, and for me, it was very important at the end of the film that she unties her hair when she comes out of the school. And it's always, you know, very special feeling of wind touching your cheeks when you are done this school and go out of the school's building. when there is spring and holidays start and you feel like, now the freedom is coming from, you know, you're putting your school back. And that was for me very important, kind of feeling of a touch of the air when you feel free and liberated. About senses. Bees were very important from the sound perspective. Also, like they can, for some people, feel like annoying something sound, but for me, it's a nice sound of childhood and very good memory of my grandfather, because he was a beekeeper. And I always associate bees with like honey and something sweet and healthy and yellow, amberish, shiny. So it was that sound was very important for me.
Thank you. No, I if I can share mine, there's just one thing when I was watching, it's like, oh, what it is reminds me of something. I'm from Taiwan, but half my childhood was in Japan. And the first house I remember was, we lived by the train tracks. even though it's really a noisy, but hearing that train driving by with that tracks hitting, that sounds, if I hear it, that brings me back to that house, and I'm taking a bath with my mom in this little tiny house with me and my sisters. Just, I understand the strawberry scented soap has a different symbolic meaning in the film, but something that how do we play with something to kind of bring out the emotions and memories of human beings. I do want to also mention, if anyone in the audience have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, and of course I'll happy to ask Ilze all the questions. The other one is actually something you mentioned earlier, is honoring the veterans. I did pick up in the film that, did you end up giving your flower to the veteran that got the most medals or the least medals?
The one with least medals. Yeah, because they looked a bit sad and a bit misplaced, and when we were giving flowers, you kind of always are looking also to share it fairly and kind of not anyone should be sorry, for getting like more popular star in this veteran line. In my case, in that situation, I remember that the old man, and they're strange from us, and that was the case at that time.
Thank you. No, so I think it was an interesting choice, because I don't think in the film you made it really clear that you actually walk up to one of them and give them. Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting moment, because we saw the aerial shot with all the kids walking up to the veterans, and then there was no one moment of little Ilze with the veterans. So I thought that was really interesting. My next question is I'm gonna turn a little bit the topic a little bit. So this one is actually about your best friend Ilge's story. So in the film, about she was talking about she felt punished by writing her most innocent and original thoughts against a dysfunctional society with the Soviet Union in her essay, but her essay got rejected, and without the freedom that she thought she would have, and she became having suicidal thoughts of harming herself. So did you know about this thing before you're shooting the film, and what's your reaction? I'm sure you're still really good friends with her, by then, I just wanted curious about that story specifically.
Yes, I knew about that story, of course, since our school days. Ilge, we went through it together when she finished, the how you call it, 8th grade. It was the exam after the 8th grade. And the things were changing so fast. So when she started in high school, then the first school day, they were saying, now we will raise you in the proper political manner. And she didn't know if she is allowed to start actually in high school or not when we finished 8th grade. But it was so painful. We didn't talk about it, for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Since it happened. I knew about it, and I knew that it was painful for Ilge to get back there in that about that day and that conversation. So actually, it was in my script all the time. And I had this idea, combining live action with the archives, but I knew that mainly the film will be animation. But I wanted Ilge to tell it by herself, and we went, and it was one of the very first live action shootings I made in the film back when I started in 2013. And we edited this episode, and when we came to the end, it was not clear because I was too soft, I was too uncertain how to ask her, and her answers also were not that specific and clear. So I had to go back to her. Mm-hmm. just before we finish the film to make this interview one more time and say, please, my friend Ilze, save me one more time. I know it's not comfortable, but I have to be more direct to you, and I need more shorter answers from you, because we were both of us talking very much around. That happened, and we made it. And of course, Ilze has always supported me as a friend, and I'm really happy that she is my friend. She was very moved after the premiere, and her husband couldn't make it to Riga, so she was with her oldest son. He's 22 years, and he was very touched also, because he said, I'm so proud of my mom. And that was a really nice moment for both of them.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That was actually one of the questions that I had for you with this is, that Ilze watched the film? What's her reaction? And I'm glad you share her son's reaction. That's really touching. I know I went really difficult corner for this question. I think we have a question in the chat that from Guna. As you observe global events today, do you think communism with the goal of one day dominating the world is making inroads?
What's communism today? I think we have some very scary states saying that they are communist states, actually collaborating with the worst versions of the greedy economics. Do you call it capitalism or what we could call it? But the communism as in old manner, I don't think that it will come back, because the communist leaders, as such, the authoritarian leaders, they love all the luxury you can get from the modern material world. If you look at those palaces of presidents around the world leading so-called communist countries, of course they are benefiting from the resources of their country. Mm-hmm. So right now the world is in a very strange situation, actually, because we have to ask what's democracy and how it's functioning. And do we have semi-democracies some places, because we need to heal from the polarization. People are divided in many countries. Those conflicts between rural and urban people, and they are kind of floating more and more in different directions, each of them. So what we need is to get back to our roots and look why we are so afraid. Mm-hmm. We are so afraid of the, opposites, and how to find this common language in the world of fake news.
Yeah, well, thank you for answering that. I mean, it's like you said, the world is such a polarized place now in all places. It's not just one country over the other, or one culture over the other. And I think that's why, in some way, the pandemic, at least in my opinion, is like the pandemic kind of put a pause on everyone's like, okay, stop what you're doing that you've been doing for the many years. Let's recognize the moment and then figure it out. And then if we have to build from the ground up, we have to. And I think goes back to your film is that process of the little girl, accepting her reality. The first stage will be more about her living in that reality that she believes she lives in, then come to realization of what that actually means from the other perspective, and then accepting all the other perspective too. So I think it goes along with that. So my next question for you is about this film, but really more about the making of it. I had the greatest opportunity from you to check out your other film. It's called My Mother's Farm. It's a documentary about your mom, and it's a full live action documentary. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you decide to make this film with mixed media that includes live action, historical footage, as well as animation.
I always have to challenge myself. I always have to make it difficult for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not kind of it can't be easy. It has to be difficult. And I need this war, struggle with myself all the time. And I am always quoting, as I don't remember, maybe I have said it before, but I am quoting all the time this children book, heroine from Scandinavia, Pippi Longstocking from Astrid Lindgren. She has this line saying that I have never done it before. It means it will be very well when I will do it. And kind of with this stupid motivation, I decided to make animation. I hadn't done animation before, and I'm just saying, oh, okay, I will make a feature film in animation. Mm-hmm. Because there are no archives. When I'm looking in the state archives, there are no presence of that grayness of the soul, of this suppression which you have in your body and in your mind, and being all those, a member of those pioneer organizations. You can make fiction, then it's expensive, but I feel that animation is something more documentaric and more real in this media's options with drawings and moods than the actors and live action fiction films. So I decided it is animated documentary. I can put those moods best in animation. And the other also very practical reason is that there are so many military objects around us all the time, and there is no archives, there is no footage, there is no visuals of those. So to make real their presence in our daily life, like this watching tower which was built and starting with the antenna in the Zeppeliner, and this mysterious polygon, the area with planes, there are no any archives. So that was also the practical reason why I wanted to draw it.
Right. And can you also talk a little bit specific to cutout animation? How did you and your producer, the team, to come up with like the distinct style that you want to go for?
We were looking a bit on the hand-drawn animation, and it would take too much money and too long time. So we landed in this style of cutout. And I think it was in the beginning I was a bit scared that the figures, the people will look too stiff in this technique. But if I look back on the animated films of my childhood, you can actually go into the mood, how it felt in 70s and 80s. So it's a bit style of those old films. And I think it pays off in the kind of characteristics of the stiffness of the Soviet people. Now we are more plastic and more relaxed and more stretchy. But in those days we were not happy to move around. So that's why we landed on that. And you have to remember, it is a fiction animation, animated fiction film made by documentary budget.
I have to keep that in mind for sure. But also the texture with the cutout too. I think that brings the character into, even though they're stiff, there's still something natural about the characters in the film too. I think it really, again, I think it's kind of like the title of My Favorite War. They have this contradictory struggle constantly, but then but has a very cohesive voice too. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm also, in addition to my job at SV as a chair of BF Animation, I'm also on the board of directors for Women Animation, which is a nonprofit organization with the vision of creating a supported platform in the world that women share equally in creation, production, and rewards of animation, with the goal of reaching 50-50 by 2025. So I'm going to switch the gear a little bit to ask you about your mother, because you did a documentary about your mother, and I cried. I can tell you that it's really, really lovely film. And your mom is such an important person and very, very strong in many, many ways. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about her and, you know, how she had any influence on you as a female director.
Yes. My mother has influenced me very, very much, of course. There are many layers of her personality, why it is so strong. Of course, we got very connected after my father died, because I had to become this other grown-up in our family. Also, at the same time, I feel she put it in me in the 7 years age, this idea that you need a goal in your life and you have to just go for that goal. And it was, she saw already then that I was a dreamer, that I will not be a person who is very good in mathematics and all those, you know, exact subjects. Mm-hmm. So she saw that I enjoy writing, and kind of she put it very early in me, this idea that you will become a journalist to fulfill what your father didn't. And I remember in my teenage years when I was kind of in this track from the, you know, first grade, it was my identity for myself, how I define myself, what I will become, what I am going to do. The only thing in my teenage years as a protest to my mother was, why I never considered something else, that I could be something else, or even dream about something, you know, other professions. You just put me in this track and I'm moving it and I'm going for it and so on. So she was kind of, influenced me in that way, that you have to put it where you want to go and fulfill it. And she comes from a very special family, of course. I would say that all my mother's brothers, they are very competitive. You have to achieve something all the time. They are very, you know, going for those big goals to do something for society, not to think only for yourself. And they are not easy personalities, of course, because of that. And there has been a lot of discussions. But what I want to say is that the film about my mother is also a portrait of this generation of hers, of those people who were born in the very early years of the Soviet occupation in Latvia, who were raised by the people who remembered free Latvia, who knew what the freedom is. And they were carrying this dream about this free republic, free society, freedom coming there. And when they got there, they were kind of old. They were unnecessary. And it is a very big tragedy, actually, for all the generation, and in specifically for my mother, who felt for the farming and went down to the countryside. So it was, again, I didn't want to make a sentimental film. I wanted to make a personalized story about the whole country and her generation, which I feel it was kind of the nerve of those people who carried this idea. And I want to tell you one very special episode, what happened when I was filming my mother for this documentary. Then she was in Norway. I'm going back to Latvia, and I followed her on the train, and I was filming by myself. And I was just taking train just for one station, you know, from my town to the next, and going back again while she was leaving for the airport. And we got those pictures for the film, that she's saying goodbye her grandchildren and so, and then I didn't know that she was ill, and for me it was the moment, kind of, for me it was when last time when I spoke to her without knowing that she is ill.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done filming, and I just asked for myself, Mom, what do you wish for me then at the end of all this? And she said, I wish you to never go empty for good ideas. And this is kind of the inspiration for me all the time, those words of my mother. I met her late afterwards, of course, she was in hospital and all that, but kind of, that was the last words of her when we didn't know that she is ill.
Thank you. I'm sorry. We talk about difficult moments, but important moments for your life. And I think your mom, as if I feel like I watched the film, I feel like I'm her best friend. Like I want to be her best friend. Oh, sorry, go ahead. You want to say something? I
would like to share with you one other story. You see, which I couldn't put it in the film very literally. Growing up with mother who is so much depressed and who struggles so much, it forms yourself as a personality. And what the connection to my favorite war is that in the film I mentioned already, this little Ilze, she has ribbons on her hair. It's blue in the beginning, and it's a daily life ribbon. And then it was a tradition in Latvia, when you have to show sorrow that you are a widow. My mother had to go with this black scarf, and on me it was, I had to go to school and everywhere with this black ribbon, and I hated it because it was like you are put out in the society to show that you are in sorrow. And I didn't like this feeling different, because black then wasn't a common color. It was just a color for the sorrow, and you were kind of marked that this family is mourning. And I was looking very much forward to my first school day, because I knew that because of the uniform, on that day I will go with a white ribbon.
Oh.
And then, you know, the Ilze gets for the parade or a festivity uniform, she gets this white ribbon. And so in the film, I drew my animators crazy, because I was all the time saying white, blue, black, white, blue, black. It's so important for the right color, for the right situation. And the first school day, when my mother made my hair, and I was going to first class, and I knew it's a very special beginning of the whole my life, because you're now entering something very big in your life. Your school, your education, the whole your own path is starting, and it's very special occasions for the whole families. And my mother made my hair, and she was getting slow, and I knew she felt the same. It's a special day. We both are thinking that in normal family, your father should be here. It should be, you know, your father should see you. We both knew that. We didn't say anything. We knew that in normal families, it's a moment where you give your kid a hug when you put them out to the school. And we both were in such a sorrow missing my father that we just looked at each other, and we didn't have strength enough to give a hug. I went out, and I knew if I would give a hug to my mother, that she will cry, and we didn't do it.
Yeah. No, but I think one of the film stills that you have of little Ilze, that ribbon literally took over half of the screen, because that's also who she is. Like who she is as a person, and her path in the new beginning too. So thank you for sharing all those stories. I mean, especially I think even in my favorite war, even though the focus more on the little Ilze in her childhood, the mother, like your mom, plays such an important role about her struggle, about her you know, her contemplation on which way to go. And I also love the moment, like how tough she was. She's like, when you turn 16, she's like, all right, you have the apartment now. I'm gonna be, I'll be in the farm. I was like, whoa, I don't think my mom would ever do something like that. She's like, I believe in you. You have all the ideas. You will move forward. I'm gonna be live my life right there. So Was it 16? What was your feeling though? Like, well, yeah, what did you have in mind back then?
I felt very, very trusted. I was not drinking, looking at the boys, not everything. I was this, the very right girl, grown up with my obligations. What is not in the film, like I'm saying, I had to be the second grown up, but I was like doing the grown up things very early, like going to the cashier of the gas office and paying for communal payments for our gas or electricity, and taking care of my brother's suits for the school, going to the cleaner, like not other kids did that. I just had to, and it feels in the film that it becomes sudden, but I always felt trusted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We do have a question in the audience from Guna. Thank you, Guna, for having all these great questions. The question is, did you have any difficulty getting backing and support for your project, like any opposition that you ran into?
Yeah, many times. Actually, it was most, I will not say easy, but it was, I felt very welcomed by Norwegian Film Institute. They believed in this story from the very beginning. The Norwegian fundings have been really, really important and supportive to me. It took a bit while Latvia got on board, because it was a very big cost for the Latvian Film Center and Latvian supporters. And then, like, kind of, I didn't get enough support around in the other countries to make breakthrough to the European media support. So that was the top financing, which was lacking at the end.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to mute myself because I live in the apartment near a city where when the heat gets turned on, there are all kinds of noise in the background. So I apologize for that. And yeah, once I'm on the call, someone was like, "Hey, your water's boiling." I'm like, "No, that's my heater telling me there's heat getting turned on." The next question I have, thank you, Guna, again for your question. The next question I have for you, Ilze, is this film really, like Kyle mentioned earlier, that this film has received so many recognition from all over the world, including Annecy. Can you share a little bit of thoughts about, how you feel about getting all this recognition and how people have been reacting to your film?
Yeah, it's when you're making your film about this childhood in some small town in some region in Latvia, you can't even imagine that it will get into Japan and Korea and all those places. And then you feel so privileged when you get in touch with audience in so many places in the world. I was really touched when Agile Festival made this conversation with jury, and it's a youngsters jury, and they were asking so wise questions, and I feel, as I say, I feel blessed and happy and privileged, because they have thoughts about peacemaking, and everybody. What I'm really happy for in this case is that everybody is getting something else, something different, what talks to them from this film. It's so many angles, like Sudanese kids, they are very worried about the war. Like actually also in Korea, because Korea it's two countries, they are departed, and they feel this question about war. Are we in peace or are we in war? Where are we? Related to them. And then it's so many questions about music and about those styles, and somebody is very happy with the ending, about those dictators going down to the river of destiny, and that has been really nice journey for me to get those impulses from different places, and very especially from the Hong Kong, we managed to have 4 screenings. I guess it was full house in those Cinematheque screenings, and the response from Hong Kong has been direct messages from the diverse spectators to me, and somebody there, we are in touch and translating the whole film. Some fans had made 45 minutes about history of Latvia in Cantonese for them, based on my favorite war, telling about this, struggle for freedom. So strange and interesting responses.
Yeah, well, and also I think this film, even though it's a documentary, usually, it's about the past and, what we learned. But, I think earlier we mentioned that this also films about what's going on right now. Like even Guna's question and from the audience is exactly what's happening right now. So it's interesting to know like that your audience relating to your film from a different parts and still relevant to what's going on right now. So thank you. I do want to ask this other question is kind of recognizing where we are, because normally we'll be in a theater together, sitting next to each other and then have an audience in front of us. So because of pandemic, you don't really get to share the film with that normal settings at the moment. Even though I understand, we have to recognize it's that in-person interactivity is not in place, but do you feel like this new platform actually gives you a different opportunities that you wouldn't have before?
Yes, in one kind, I feel it, because it's I think maybe I'm reaching more meetings and more audiences and more questions in that way, that I don't feel like tired while traveling around. Of course, I would love to meet audience in person, and of course I would love to see those countries like Sevilla, where I have never been, or Seoul, or what, but at the same time, it's closeness, like with you, when I can see your face for in close-up for so many minutes, and it's not rushing, and you are kind of calmer in your own environment, like in the German Q&A session. They started asking, who of you are wearing shoes and who of you are in slippers? And I feel that we all are kind of in our pajamas and slippers all around, and maybe breaking down our facades in some way, meeting like that.
Definitely bring people more together in terms of seeing what people are wearing, and not just here, but down there too. All right, I do have one last question. So audience, if you have anything else, please put it in the chat. My last question for you is, can you share if you are working on any new projects that you can actually tell us?
Who? My mom was always telling me, if you talk to artists, don't kind of push them, because nothing is secure in art, like for the journalist. But of course, I do. I love I work on several things. I love my work. I like a profession. I love being director. Right now, I am finishing a short film, my first one with the actors, like fiction film. It will be delivered after 1 week, and the title is Unfollow Me. It's about grown-up young woman who is working in a bank and making some crazy tattoo to provoke her grandmother. And grandmother needs her to be secure and nice, and so and it's about this generation gap actually, but in the basics it's film about love between generations, even though each of them live in their separate bubbles, that in families we are in the human relations, there still are, despite those different bubbles. So that film will be finished within 1 week. We have sound work. I don't want to leave animation at all. I'm working on the new project, which is animated documentary. It looks like that. It's a bra. And that will be an animated documentary. I'm making interviews with again young women who were teenagers when their mothers left from Latvia to Western Europe to work, and they were raised by their mothers. So actually, I got this idea. Working in my fiction film, I thought I will make interviews with real characters, real people, and make an animated documentary based on those stories. And that will be like 15 or 18 minutes. And it is in the very beginning. I have some funding from Norway for that film to continue. And then my, the big dream, it's a fiction character. It's a little girl. She lives in some fiction planet, but the planet is suffering from environmental crisis, and the planet is suffering, and she has to leave that planet because the planet is destroyed by its inhabitants. So my heroine is going out to the space to search for a new home in the space. And that will be a complete fiction story.
Wow. So you're juggling on so many different stories and different styles, but I'm sure they're all really close to your heart and finding inspiration around you in your daily life. So thank you, Ilze, for sharing all the stories. Before we start the session, we were also sharing a lot of our personal stories. And unfortunately, I don't think we have time to kind of go over all of that. But my whole audience will, enjoy this film as much as I did. I really love it. And I can't thank you, Ilze, and your team enough for making this story and telling your story and sharing your stories with everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the conversation. It was so interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, so I think that's it. We're going to maybe end the call. Well,
Bye.
thank you, everyone. Have a good one.